Hey, ladies and gentlemen, this is Carmine Sabia for Explain America, and JD Vance. He did something today that even shocked the Fox News host he was talking to. Before we get started, please make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe. Those little things really help us out, and they help our channel continue to grow. And if you're not watching us on YouTube, please visit that address in the lower right-hand corner. It's youtube.com/@explainamerica. And when you get there, please hit subscribe, absolutely free. It really helps us out. JD Vance spoke to Maria Bartiromo today in a long-ranging interview. In fact, we're going to get some more of what he talked about in another video. But in this particular video, let's talk about DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. This is in a hot-button topic for conservatives and liberals alike. It has been a very controversial subject, and when President Donald Trump talked about DEI in the wake of a tragic air disaster in Washington, D.C., well, the airwaves lit up. People, pundits, Democrats pounced. They said it wasn't the right time, it wasn't the right place. Listen, I don't think it was the right time and place, but he might know something I don't know. And I always preface it with that, and he might be very angry about it. So I try to think of that as well, what I would do versus what he would do. Listen, 77 million people, including myself, voted for this man. We know exactly how he talks. We know exactly who he is. And this is who he is. This is what we voted for. So I'm cool with it. JD Vance doubled down on it when he talked to Maria Bartiromo. He said this DEI push has made us less safe. They are going to eradicate it from federal agencies, especially things like aviation, things that deal with public safety. They're going to get rid of it. And we need instead a meritocracy, where it's just the best person for the job, regardless of race, creed, color, gender, sexual orientation, any of that stuff. None of that matters. The only thing that matters is the person can do the job and they're the best qualified for that job. Now, for far too long in our country, and you guys know this, I'm not breaking news here, it wasn't that way. There was, minority people were absolutely skipped over for jobs. But that's in history. That's not today. Today, you have underqualified people being promoted for jobs instead of more qualified people getting them. And that's not only wrong, it's dangerous. That's what JD Vance was talking about here, and I want you to take a look at it and let me know what you think in the comments.
Our hearts go out to everybody who was affected by it. I've actually made a couple of phone calls to the relatives of the deceased, to the people who lost their lives, and it's just incredibly heartbreaking. I mean, you've got, moms who are, mothers to very young children. You've got a dad who had a 1-year-old baby on the Army helicopter. We have to remember the human tragedy of this, because when Americans have tragedy, I think we can all come together, Democrat, Republican, or Independent, and just say, we love those folks, we're going to do right by them, and we're going to support them through what is, I think, the unspeakable tragedy of the last couple of days. But I do think that we also have to do a better job at the policy so that we make sure that aviation is as safe as it possibly can. Now, we haven't had an aviation accident like this in about 15, 20 years. We want to make sure that we try to never have an aviation accident like this again, or at least make them as minimal as possible. And that does, I think, mean that we have to talk about the DEI policies. Now, here's the specific way in which I think the DEI policies of the last administration, the Obama administration, contributed to where we are. We have a massive shortage of air traffic controllers. And in fact, there have been a number of lawsuits from people who would like to become air traffic controllers against the Obama and Biden administration, who are basically said, we were told not even to apply because of the color of our skin, because they were white people who wanted to be air traffic controllers, and under the DEI regime of the Biden administration, they weren't welcome. Well, what does that mean? Number one, it means that we don't have the best and the brightest sometimes in these positions, but even more importantly than that, even when we do get really good people, they're going to be way overstressed because they're working long hours, because air traffic controllers are short-staffed, and we have known going back years. I was on the Commerce Secretary, or the Commerce, I was on the Commerce Committee in the Senate. We knew for years that we had a shortage at air traffic control. Well, Part of the reason why we had a shortage of air traffic control is because we were telling our air traffic controllers not to hire people because of the color of their skin. That is a scandal, and it is a scandal, thankfully, that has stopped under the leadership of President Trump. It's why I'm actually optimistic about aviation safety, but it's also why we've had way too many near misses and unfortunately a fatal crash just a couple days ago.
So, I mean, do you have any evidence that any of those hires that were there at the control Wednesday night were DEI hires?
So the president's been very clear about this. This is not saying that the person who was at the controls is a DEI hire, but let's just say, first of all, we should investigate everything, but let's just say the person at the controls didn't have enough staffing around him or her because we were turning people away because of DEI reasons. There is a very direct connection between the policies of the last administration and short-staffed air traffic controllers. That has to stop. And by the way, it's so funny to me, the media has picked up on this, not you, of course, Maria, but others have picked up on this. The president made very clear that he wasn't blaming anybody, but he was being very explicit about the fact that DEI policies have led our air traffic controllers to be short-staffed. That is a scandal. Thankfully, it's a scandal that the president has stopped.
Well, I mean, what can you do about it? Because you said we haven't had an accident like this in a long time. True,
Sure.
but we've had a lot of near misses.
Yes, we have.
Right? We've had almost 1,000 near misses just recently. We're talking about 20-year-old traffic management systems, and they're responsible for detecting and managing landings at airports. Meanwhile, you've got companies like Lockheed Martin and Raytheon that have very sophisticated systems, and our allies are using those systems, like
That's
in
right.
the UK.
That's right. So there are two big issues here. Number one, most importantly, again, you've got to have the right people at air traffic control. Air traffic control is short-staffed, and I think the elimination of DEI hires and DEI policies will allow us actually to hire the air traffic controllers that we need. The software point is really important, though, because we know if you look at these old, antiquated air traffic control systems, it really does look like a video game that's 30 years old. We've got better software. We need a federal government that's more responsive to the technology that's out there. And I really do think that with President Trump's leadership, we're going to have those near misses and those almost terrible tragedies. Those are going to come down, which means our aviation system is going to be much safer.